You're listening to the Successful Mind Podcast.
Successful people learn how to make their minds work for them. I'm David Nagel, and this is the Successful Mind Podcast. Hey everybody, David Nagel. Welcome to another episode of the Successful Mind Podcast. Being that it's January, I think that it's kind of apropos that I talk about an interesting topic that came up in our TEM groups. And for those of you who don't know what that is, I run a group called the Elite Mind. It's called Elite Mind 365. And what that 365 stands for a year. It's a group of people that I meet with every morning, 7 days a week, all year long. They're all elite business owners, and they're doing amazing things. And I had this really weird experience with them actually about a month ago that I've been working on with them. And I'm going to tell you what it is. And I wanted to share the lesson with all of you because I think it would be beneficial no matter where you are, whether you have a business, whether you've accelerated in your business, maybe you're in a job and you're trying to figure out, hey, how can I break out on my own so that I can do something that I really want with my life? If you have a dream and you're not sure, how do I step into my dream? I think this one's going to be good for you. But this one I think is going to require some work on your part. Like, not that the other ones that I bring to you don't, but this is kind of interesting. So let me stop telling you about it and tell you exactly what it is. So I'm teaching, and I was talking to everybody. I was saying, you really need to start, like the starting point of everything that we do comes from the idea of our own greatness. And you really need to remember and train yourself and teach yourself that you're a great person just because you're a great person. And actually, I didn't even say the second half of that when I was originally teaching it. I was saying, you're just a great person. You have to think to yourself, I'm a great person. And then the idea behind it is, what would a great person do in their life, right? Would a great person go after their dream, or would a great person do things that are beneath their potential just for safety reasons? Would a great person turn around the direction of their life no matter where they are in that, whether they're in their teens or their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s? I've had people in their upper 80s start businesses. Like, there's so many wonderful things that a great person would do. And then, so I'm teaching this and I'm going on with a few different things. And one day I get done teaching and I get a bunch of text messages from these people because they all have the ability to text message their wins and various different things that we share in the morning and in these groups. And the message was the same with everybody. And it was about 5 or 6 of them. And they all said, how do we know we're great? And as I was watching them come in throughout the day, I didn't respond. I just noticed it, right? Like, I'm working, I get a text message just like you guys are working. You get a text message. You don't necessarily answer it right away. How do I know I'm great? And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting question. And then I get another one. And then I get another one. And I get another one. By the next morning, I'll bet I had 10 or 15 of them by the next morning. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. This is really like, I didn't even think to myself that they didn't know how to know if they were great. So I said, okay, I'm going to start teaching some lessons on this for maybe the next month. Next morning, I started to address this. And I was telling everybody that, I got all these messages from you guys. And it's a really great question. And I want to answer it and see if I can teach this in a way where that this becomes something that you can grab a hold of, you can know inside of yourself and actually use. So as I was thinking about it myself, I thought, what is the problem? Why would they ask this question? And I realized as soon as I asked myself that question, the answer to the question came to me immediately. They asked this question because they don't have a feeling or an emotion that goes along with the statement, right? In other words, You can say, I'm a great person. I was born a great person. I'm here to do great things. I'm a great and wonderful person. But if your emotional state doesn't match that statement, it's not going to seem real to you. And not only is it not going to seem real, you're going to end up fighting against it, because the truth is most people's emotional state is what's kind of regulating their reality. If we think about it like this, when we're born, we have no concept of reality and we have no concept of self. Everything is about getting our needs met. We don't even understand language, right? So we've got to figure out a way to communicate with mom and dad to get our needs met, because without them, we would literally die, which you've all heard me say this before. There's an extraordinary significance to that, though. So you're going to hear me say it another 100 times if you keep listening to me. And the reason that there's such a significance is because at one point in our life, the idea that if we didn't get those needs met by someone else, we would die was real. That would really happen. So biologically, our subconscious mind knows that. And what it's looking for is what we would be like the transition of power over our childhood, which is what's supposed to happen for everybody, right? We're supposed to go through life and we're learning and we're accomplishing things and we're mastering things and we're maturing and we're growing and we're going through different phases of childhood, turning from a child to an adult. And what's supposed to happen is that at some point in time, there's supposed to be like a line of demarcation in our life where we consciously accept authority of ourself, where we know that we're now the authority in our life, not somebody else and not something else. Well, through all history, if you look at different cultures, they had what was known as rites of passage. And many of those cultures, especially the ones in the Western countries, they've kind of gotten rid of those things as any kind of substantial transition in life. Yeah, like in America, we could say when you're 16, or maybe when you're 12 or 13 years old, if you're Jewish, you got your bar mitzvah. When you're 16, you get your driver's license. When you're 18, you can vote. When you're 21, you could drink. When you're 17 or 18, you can join the military. When you're 15, 16, you might be able to get a little part-time job or something. These are all little things that kind of signify that we're moving into the idea where we have some adult abilities, but there's nothing as far as the internal transformation from I'm a child and everybody in my life is in authority over me. Maybe not my siblings, but even, older ones might be. But mom, dad, teacher, clergy, other parents on the block, you name it, right? Everybody's in authority over this kid. When does the kid get authority? So in a lot of cultures, they had rites of passage, right? They had tests that both men and women had to pass in order to step in to become an adult within the tribe. And then they had specific responsibilities. They were entering a stage of adult and authoritative maturity. They understood what that meant. They had very specific roles that they would play. And of course, this would increase as a person, got more into their adulthood. But the point was that they knew it when it happened. Because if they didn't pass those tests of courage and responsibility and whatever it was that they needed to pass, they were not an adult. They had to pass those tests. And it required that they had to do very specific adult things, knowing that they were doing them to then be a person of their own authority. Well, we've gotten rid of that. So what ends up happening is we raise people, they go into their adulthood. Yes, they're doing some adult things, but they're still living a life where almost everybody is an authority over them. And if they don't specifically go into a life choosing that they say they want to be a business owner, even their income is determined largely by what somebody else says that they can make or do. Yeah, they may go get an education or a skill set or whatever, but it's still in the hands of somebody else. So with all of that programming that takes place from the moment of conception until this person is, say, in their early 20s, okay, how they experience their world is based on what they're told, all the meanings that they're given about their world, and everything in it is given to us by somebody else. Then we go through the experience of that. That experience then elicits emotions, and we're taught whether the emotions are right, wrong, or indifferent. In other words, even our emotional state is highly programmed by the way other people think we should feel about things. Happiness, sadness, shame, guilt, right, wrong, joy, elation, depression even, everything. And most people don't realize that. Well, how many of you were raised in a family where you were told over and over again that you're great because you're great? Now, not from an egotistical or an arrogant or a narcissistic perspective, but from the perspective that the reason you're here is for greatness. There's a purpose for you to be here, and that purpose existed before you came into this body. Your job once in this body was to be prepared for that purpose. Then it's for you to acknowledge that purpose and then become the person that you desire to become to fulfill that purpose. That requires greatness. All life in the universe, there is greatness in it. So if you say to a person, something, regardless of your circumstances, you're really great. Like, you're a really great person. If they don't internally self-identify with that, they're not going to think that they're great. So I recognize this is a big problem. So as I began to teach this, I was telling people, I said, what we really need to think about here is that when you say you're great, you're not necessarily going to find an emotion that goes along with it. It's not going to be there. In most cases, if you're searching for an internal emotion to identify the idea that you're great and you can't find it, you may come to the self-conclusion that you're not great. And that would be not true. That would absolutely be not true. You are great. So what do we do in this situation? Which is a really great question, right? First of all, you have to understand why you're great. And I just went through a bit of that. I believe we're great because we were created by God or an intelligence that put us into a world that is full of purpose. We're here to do something. There's something wonderful and great about us. But it's not because of something that we did in the past, okay? So a lot of times when a person is looking at, like, how do I feel, like, self-evidently about myself in my life right here in this moment? What do? They look at their past and they let their past wins, losses, rights, wrongs, ups, downs, whatever it is, kind of determine about how they feel right now in this moment in their lifetime. And that's a very dangerous thing, because what if you don't have a great past? And most people don't have a great past. We have a past with a lot of variety in it. There's a lot of things in there. How do we determine who we are right now? And then there's this little trick that makes it even more complicated. We live in a world that says that you can't have certain things unless you deserve them. What determines if you deserve them? What is it that determines that? Well, in the society we live in, it's usually the tests and the capabilities that other people set for us to reach, to say, hey, we deserve this. But what do you deserve? How do you deserve to be great? So one things that you've heard me talk about before is the idea that in order to help find direction, true direction in our life, we have to acknowledge what we truly desire, because desire gives us direction, okay? Again, I'll say this, I've repeated this many times. We're not talking about fleeting wants, wishes, pipe dreams, that type of stuff. Everybody has that, right? I'm talking about a desire that doesn't go away. And it could be for a thing. It could be for the way that you want to be in life. It could be for a destination. It could be for a dream, whatever it is. That gives us direction, that desire. It's saying, go this way. And when we say go this way, what does it mean? It means become this person, because that's your purpose in life. So we have to become the person to fulfill the purpose. But if your starting point is that you're not very good, or that you're not a very good person, and you're using your past or other people's opinions of you based on what you did or did not do, whether they approve of you or not, you might be in a lot of trouble, because you can't ever rectify in your mind why you would be great to begin with. So you would come from the place where you don't think you actually deserve to do something great in life. And I don't know who's listening to this right now, but I can tell you I've met many, many people in my lifetime that, because of various different reasons and mistakes and screw-ups and problems, and people that were victimized, that they don't think that they deserve any more than they have. And I don't think that there's a person on the planet where that's actually really true from. I think that all that does is perpetuate more pain and suffering. I think that we have to rectify our past, but our past does not control the future, not in any way. We can decide at any moment in time, in any situation, that we're great. And we don't need to justify it. When you get a chance, write that down. I'm great because I'm great. I do not need to justify it. I don't need to justify it to myself. I don't need to justify it to anybody else, right? Now, the idea of being great, having greatness inside of us, that is a gift from God. That is a gift from the universe. Every living thing has its own unique greatness. Doing something with it is entirely different, but you can't do anything with it if you don't know that you've got it. And it's now my experience that many people don't know that they have it, because what they're looking for is a feeling to verify that they're great that doesn't exist, instead of a statement of fact that they're great. So I'll let you in on this last little piece. It's really fascinating when you think about this. When we're looking for a feeling to verify what we are, I can't think of a scenario where that shows up where the feeling wasn't associated with what somebody else told us about ourselves. And why would that be? Because that's what's happened since we were born, right? Human beings are a reflection of the people around them, and the people around them basically telling them or indicating in some way who they are as a person. And if the person does not have healthy people around them to give them really good feedback in a way where they can build a solid sense of self, they may have a terrible sense of self because there's people around them that are a mess. And unfortunately, that's true for a lot of people. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's listening to this. I'm speaking to everybody that's watching this or listening to this. You're great. You don't need anybody else to verify it. You need to know that that's why you're here. You're not here because of an accident. You're not here without any kind of a purpose, right? You have a purpose. It was here before you got here. It doesn't matter how you got here. It matters that you're here. And because of that, you're great, or you wouldn't be here. Now, the next question is, what are you going to do with it? The first thing is to really establish this idea. I'm great because I'm great, right? It's like in the Bible where God said, I am because I am. You don't need to justify it. You don't need anybody else's approval. You don't need anybody to be a reflection of that statement. It is a statement with a tremendous amount of power that you're great, and it's your responsibility, and it's your choice as to what you're going to do with it. Now, it's an extraordinarily big deal because in the world that we live in, you could take this idea that you're great, which is power in and of itself, and you could go down a great direction in your life, or you could go down a nasty one. That's your choice, right? Obviously, we're not proposing that somebody goes down a nasty one. We're proposing that you do something wonderful with your life. Follow that desire, But the truth is that that idea of greatness is so powerful, it can go in either direction. And that's terrifying to some people, right? Because, well, it's just the damn truth is what it is. And we have examples of that all throughout history. I'm telling you that because I want you to realize that nothing, good or bad, right or wrong, can be accomplished without the acknowledgement or even the use of that idea that you have great power inside of yourself. Wake up to that now, that it's there because you're here. You couldn't be here without it, right? You couldn't be here without it. It is who you are. Recognize that you don't need any kind of a feeling to verify that that's true. It's a statement of fact, as a statement of fact that you're a human being, that you're a spiritual being, that you're here in this marvelous universe. The next step is to then decide what feeling you want to create around it, because that part is up to you. What you want to do with it, the direction that you want to give it in your life, that part is up to you. Because the next greatest power that we have is our ability to choose. So you can take this greatness as a statement of fact. I am great because I am great. And I'm going to take that statement and I am going to become something that does great things out in the world. That's going to be my life. That's going to be my existence. That's who you are. So given that it's January, we've got a whole year to determine how we want to take that greatness and express it in the most amazing ways for our life, because we can live whatever life that we choose to live. We live in the most amazing time, I believe. The opportunities are everywhere for a person that wakes up to the idea that they're great. You're great because you're great. And let that sink in and guide you in your life. Love you guys. Have an amazing day. Share this with somebody, and I'll see you on the next Successful Mind podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Successful Mind podcast. If you like what you heard and you want to learn more, go to lifeisnowinc.com.